everyone, welcome back to the channel. And I wanted to talk about Keith Lee. If you haven't heard, Keith Lee has drawn himself into be a food critic and has stirred up a lot of chaos when it comes to Atlanta, Georgia restaurants. Now, I wanted to use this as an example of the current transit of Lilith and Virgo, okay? Because when we understand Virgo is a sign of service. And when we look at Lilith, Lilith is a aspect that is considered the darkest part of the moon, okay? And so the energy of Lilith feels very karmic. And you can identify Lilith in a lot of ways as you would Saturn, because you'll find that karma has a lot to do with these planets. But Lilith will create a lot more chaos, where Saturn will create more structure. So when we're looking at the current transit of Lilith and Virgo, you're going to see the three aspects of Lilith when it comes to feeling rejected, okay? Lilith's story is about rejection, and that's how I like to translate Lilith into our reality. It's an experience that has us feel rejection. And then from that sense of rejection, one reacts in varying degrees. And because of Lilith's energy being dark feminine, we typically have more choices than we realize. We can react in ways that allow us to explore our darker selves, our more evil like selves, in a way that helps us to feel free to some degree. So, with the situation with Keith Lee, we find that he is making a very specific stand about service. I think that that's really important when we're looking at Lilith and Virgo. Because, yes, he is a critic of food, and he does actually comment on the food quality itself. The whole chaos that happened in Atlanta had to do with service. It was about customer service, and it was specifically, you guys, about elitism. Okay? It was a lot about elitism, because the reason that Keith Lee would not allow himself to be served was because he is now seen as a celebrity but doesn't want to be treated as one. So at first, when he walks into the restaurants, or he sends his family actually into the restaurants, they deny them for some degree. Okay. Then Keith takes it upon himself to go into restaurants. He has his face be shown, and then they offer service to him because he is well known. And so it's quite a fascinating thing, because there is an argument that, to have a celebrity or food critic be well taken care of in your establishment will be good for you, because it's going to prioritize the way that they express and give word of mouth about your establishment, right? But Keith Lee is an agent of change, and in a lot of ways, he seems to express this Lilith and Virgo in her highest consciousness, which is to really help the people who actually need to be helped, to service the people equally, right? And to not create any sort of corruption in that service. And the corruption that I feel is really being expressed is elitism. Like, why is it that you would prioritize, a person who is well known, celebrity, food critic, right, over people who've been waiting in a line for over an hour, for 2 hours to be served? So when we're looking at Virgo, we are looking at service in a lot of ways. Virgo is a sign that has to do with choosing to be of good vocation and service. And where we see Virgo, we understand that it takes a certain mentality to work the way that you would work where Virgo is in your chart. So where you have Virgo in your chart, you are in active service. You're in this active service. And as Lilith transits through Virgo, you're looking at how it is that you treat service and how you are treated as a server. Okay. And you may find that in specific house placements, you're more of the one who's serving. In other placements, you're actually more of the one who is being served. Right. And so that level of how we tend to each other matters. Now, Virgo also is connected to like nursing. It has a lot of energy like that because it's opposite of Pisces. And so both of them, Pisces and Virgo, has a lot to do with nursing the sick. Okay, so I feel like when we look at Lilith and Virgo, the highest octane of Lilith and Virgo is somebody who's willing to serve, willing to help those in need, and willing to do it at their best capacity to do it, to not cut corners, to not try to make things, harder or easier, but to serve at the will of the need to help the sick. Or in this case with Keith Lee, it may be to serve at the will to help your clients and your customers. So I want you to think about where Virgo's in your chart and how is it that you treat people who need to be served, or how is it that you treat service? I think this is so interesting because one of the conversations that are brought up is the automated gratuity in some of these Atlanta restaurants. And this doesn't just happen in Atlanta, it happens everywhere where you have this automated gratuity. And it does make sense to a degree, especially when you have really big tables of people. But that automated gratuity can be something that is taken in two ways. The first way is that it could be like, we see that you are a service, you're a waitress, you're a hostess, and we want to make sure that you get paid well, right? But the other thing that can create is this lack of needing to serve because you're already paid, you're already paid for your service without having to earn it. So when we're looking at Lilith and Virgo, we're also looking at how well are we earning our service? You know what I'm saying? Because service is something that can be paid for, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes service and true authentic service doesn't come out of the need to have anything come back to you. Now, if you give really good service, usually in some way or another, you're going to get that good karma back and something great is going to come back to you. But we have to look at when somebody is serving, are they looking to get something back right away? And if that's the case, are they truly in their most authentic need to serve? And these are the things that are questioned when it comes to Virgo in our chart. What is that exchange? Is there an exchange necessary, right? And of course, there is an exchange necessary, but to expect it, to have an expectation of that exchange, can really corrupt the service itself. And so Lilith and Virgo looks at the way that we handle each other, handle service workers, handle the people who are being served, and handle these establishments in a way that helps people to feel like everything is about bringing up the community and being at a high quality. So, Lilith of Virgo questions and exposes high quality, recognizing what is important about having high quality things. And so this is why, like, critics in general, food critics, film critics, criticism in general falls under Virgo. Now, in the lowest octane of Lilith and Virgo, which actually is a more chaotic feminine energy, you're getting high criticism, unnecessary high criticism. Okay, so that's something to think about too. Like, is there a layer with Keith that is unnecessary high criticism? I personally don't think so, but in the chaos of Lilith, some people do think so. Some people think that his criticism is unnecessary and being a detriment to black businesses. So these are the themes that happen with Lilith and Virgo. In her most chaotic, she's at the lowest level. And so you might equate the lowest level to be a weak level, but from how I like to interpret Lilith, the lowest level isn't the weakest level, and the highest level isn't necessarily well, the lowest level specifically isn't the weakest level. The weakest level probably would be the intermediate level. Okay, so the lowest level is chaos. And when we're looking at Lilith and Virgo, this is karma of a slave, karma of a slave, karma of a parasite or a leech, a karmic of a doctor who has no good bedside manners, karma of somebody who violates service. And so this might seem very weak, but it's actually it's just chaos. And so this is somebody who they're very petty, they're very quarrelsome, they are overly critical, right? And cynical as well. And they lack a little bit of the sense of honor and nobility. So this is the rejection of Lilith in her chaos. She will be quarrelsome, cynical, overcritical. Okay, the intermediate level of Lilith and Virgo is going to be what I would say the weakest point. So somebody experiences rejection during a Lilith and Virgo, and then they may react like the intermediate level, which is they end up being the victim. Okay, and one could even wonder if Keith Lee would fall into this place because he's attracting a lot of backlash. Okay, so basically, this person is constantly suffering humiliation in the workplace and is rejected by coworkers, by clients, and things like that. So they experience the victim expression of Lilith and Virgo. Would I say that Keith Lee is experiencing the ultimate weakness? No, but he is trying to maintain his level of a strong reputation as certain people try to attack him. And so he's kind of like wavering in and out of this weak level of Lilith and Virgo. And I'm using this very lightly, okay? Just as an example of how Lilith and Virgo is expressing herself in this current transit. So there's quite often a time when people will make a fool out of you at this weakest level of Lilith and Virgo. And you're forced to do things that are really quite unpleasant. And you're taking care of people, but you don't want to. You're faced with having to take care of maybe the elderly or the sick, or serve people that you don't want to serve, or experience serving people who really don't treat you well. And there's a real strong layer of that you'll find in the elitist world, where they don't honor their servants, and so they will eventually have to deal with their own weakness when it comes to lack of honoring that. But it's actually the servants who are experiencing that weak level of Lilith and Virgo. So to be of service is to be willing to serve anyone, even if they are elitist. And if you can do that in a way where you still can maintain your own self honor, then you won't fall in this weak level. Okay, so the superior level is Lilith experiencing consciousness. Okay, because Lilith is dark feminine. So it's feminine without masculinity. It's the dark feminine. So when Lilith is at the highest level, there is light coming and meeting the waters. Okay, is meeting the dark feminine. Maybe not completely merged, but the dark feminine is seeking light, is seeking consciousness of herself. And so in the face of rejection, is willing to serve anyone for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? And tend to the sick with a willing heart and an honorable and noble heart. Somebody at the superior level of Lilith and Virgo, they understand and honor the material side of life, but they also understand and honor the spiritual as well. They're professional and they handle everything at a level of high profession. And they recognize what is truly healthy when it comes to what health is, whether it's medicine, fitness, things like that. And the person has overcome the feeling of being a slave. See, there's a very, very distinct difference between somebody who's a slave and somebody who's serving at their will. And a lot of people might think that it's money. And while there is a level of that, but it's not really, because you could, while most people, associate slavery with no money, you could still be a slave and just be getting paid very, very little. So to cross the line of slavery into authentic service is your attitude, is your point of view, is your willingness to serve, because it may feel like, well, from a slave point of view, it's like they're making me do this, and I know that this might really hurt a lot. This might really not rub a lot of people well, because, especially if coming from the Black community, the narrative is like, we didn't have a choice in this. We really were slaves. So how dare you say that? Um, and I really can't really speak on that. But what I can truly say is, from my experience when I was working, there were two versions of me. And the version of me that showed up respecting the fact that I needed to work, respecting the fact that I needed to serve, that's when I had opportunities. So the frequency, let's say the frequency of slavery is being forced to do it at will, where the frequency of servitude is that you actually put a hand in it. And so you're nourishing and nurturing service, your vocation, your calling, your purpose. And there is a choice to do it, but they're both unpleasant jobs. To serve isn't a pleasant job, but one sees the service as a necessary thing that they have to do. I have to take care of the sick. The other one might say, I'm doing this because if I don't, I will suffer. So it's a very fine line, and it's a very it's definitely debatable. I'm not going to sit here and say that what I'm saying is absolutely accurate. We're dealing with Lilith. Nothing is accurate. It's all chaos. But truly, it's a great conversation to start when we're looking at the frequency of the slave mentality versus somebody who serves. So I want you to actually think about it yourself. And I'd love for you to tell me what you think in the comments about what you think is the difference between somebody who is in a slave position versus a service position. Thanks, you guys. I'll talk to you in the next video.